Hi. Well, the time has come. It is the final review video in my series, which I've been doing since January. I've done about one video per week since January, covering 50 movies that have been written about by Tom Breihan, who's a writer on avclub.com, on his series A History of Violence, which is about what he considers the most important action movie of each year, starting with Steve McQueen's film Bullitt in 1968 and moving forward to the present. Last week he posted his review on Chapeau Leng 2, or Killzone 2, and at the end he mentioned that his entry for 2017 would be Wolf Warrior 2, which he's not actually going to post his review on until January, but since he told me what it was, and the rest of us who read it, I was able to watch it earlier this week. So this is the last one. This is the last number 50 in this series right here. It's kind of incredible. I don't know, a lot of you might be following the Schmoes and Collider and their countdown of the top 50 superhero movies of all time. That's something that I've been keeping up with as well. Not quite similar, but I just thought I'd mention it. Anyway, yeah. So Wolf Warrior 2, this is a movie, of course, which just came out this year. I looked over the Wikipedia page, and it turns out it's like a huge blockbuster, not just in China, but in, like, the world. You compare the worldwide gross, some of the top grossing movies in history, and it's right up there, which is pretty amazing. The co-writer and director and star of this movie is Jing, who also happened to star in Chapeau Leng 2, which I talked about last week. He was the undercover cop who winds up in prison and teams up with some other guys to take down the criminals in that big martial arts movie. Lots of great martial arts fights. This one I didn't like as much. A little disappointing. Everything is played really, really big in this movie. Every moment is just like super exaggerated, super emotional. Gets a little tiring after a while. But it does have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of action in it. Lots of fighting, lots of shooting, lots of blowing stuff up, car chases, tanks, everything, gets thrown into this movie. It takes place in a country in Africa, an unnamed country in Africa. There is a factory owned by China, Chinese factory located there, and when the country comes under siege by revolutionaries that want to overthrow the African government, these people are put in danger. The main character, like I said, this is called Wolf Warrior 2, so it's a sequel. I haven't seen Wolf Warrior 1, but, it didn't seem like you needed to know a lot about the first movie in order to understand what was happening here. The character Wu Jing plays is named Leng Feng, and he is a former Chinese Special Forces, very, very good at combat, very good at what he does. In the beginning of the movie, basically, he gets into a fight with a guy who wants to bulldoze the homes of the families of some veterans, a veteran who was actually killed in combat, and Leng is so incensed by this that he kicks the head of the construction company who's threatening him and kicks him right into a car and kills him, and so he ends up spending about 3 years in prison. When he gets out, he ends up going overseas to work in Africa to make a living there. He befriends this kid whose mom works in the Chinese factory, and they spend a lot of time together, and then the revolution strikes, and dozens of innocent people are gunned down and blown up in the streets. They take refuge in the Chinese embassy. They find out that the Chinese Navy are arriving in port, and they go and speak with those guys. And they're like, look, see, there are these people, these innocent people that are going to be killed by these revolutionaries here if you don't help them. It's like, well, we don't have permission to do that. This is an African problem. The African government, the African military has to deal with this. We're not allowed in there. So Leng's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go and rescue those people myself. So he makes his way to the factory. There's a very high-value individual named Dr. Cheng, who is sought by a lot of different people because he may have discovered the vaccine to a virus, a disease that's ripping through some of the communities there and laying waste to them. But the revolutionaries want them as well. And there's a paramilitary organization called Dylan Corps, which is headed by none other than Frank Grillo, a.k.a. Crossbones, a.k.a. Brock Rumlow from the Captain America movies. He's also, of course, the main character in the second and third Purge movies. He is the leader. His name is Big Daddy. He's the leader of this, organization that's basically just, like, they want Dr. Chang because his knowledge is valuable, and they're just going to wipe out anyone who gets in their way. So they're, super, super bad guys. Leng makes his way to where Dr. Chang is, but Dr. Chang gets killed in a most spectacular fashion. He gets one gunshot, basically, to the chest, but by the time the scene is over, his entire white outfit is completely pink and soaked with blood from this one gunshot. Everything is over the top and exaggerated. What Leng does is he meets Dr. Rachel Smith, who's played by Celina Jade, and she has a young girl basically that she's taking care of. Dr. Chen says this girl is his daughter, but as it turns out, she's a patient, and that her blood may hold the key to a vaccine for this disease that's spreading through these African communities. So Leng takes Dr. Rachel and the girl and puts them in a vehicle and tries to escape from there, and they're pursued by the Dylan Corps and by other bad guys, and they just basically have to fight their way to the factory and try and protect the mother of the kid who Leng has befriended, get her out of harm's way, get the people there out of harm's way, and most of the rest of the action centers around this Chinese factory that the revolutionaries and the military organization, the Dylan Corps, they're all, intent on, getting their high-value targets, be it the doctor or the little girl whose blood may hold the key to the vaccine, and, of course, also Leng himself, because he's just like a troublemaker for them. They just want to wipe him out along with anyone else that's standing in their way. So everything else is just basically gunfights and tanks blowing things up and just lots and lots of fighting as the movie draws to a conclusion. Like I said, I didn't really like this as much as some of the other movies that I've seen. I definitely didn't like it as much as the movie from last week, Killzone 2. That was more my speed. This one, again, is just like everything is just exaggerated. All the moments and the emotions are played super, super big and would be comical if, it seemed like more like the intent of the movie was to be serious. But yeah, it's a little bit too cartoonish for me. And yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of innocent people that are just, shot and gunned down and blown up throughout the entire movie. There's no shortage of action. There's tons and tons and tons of action. Whether or not you dig it or not is probably depends on your taste. If you don't want to see lots and lots of innocent people getting killed, you probably want to steer clear of this one. But there's plenty of impressive action, lots of great fighting, and just in general, it's full to the brim of conflict and mayhem. I also wanted to mention a guy named Oleg Prudius. Oleg Prudius is one of the members of Dylan Corps. And I get the impression that English is not his first language, but the people that wrote his dialogue also don't speak English as their first language either, and because his lines are really, really strange. Frank Grillo, he is able to sell his lines a little bit better. Some of them don't quite make sense, but he's a good enough actor that he can make it work. Whereas some of the other, the entire movie was subtitled, actually, even the English dialogue, so I guess that makes things easier. It's like, instead of translating all the African dialects and Chinese and everything like that into English subtitles, and leaving the English alone, we're just going to do everything. Every single line in the movie is going to be subtitled. So, anyway, that was, I got the on-demand, basically, here, because I couldn't get the DVD, and it didn't play in theaters here in Chicago. So, yeah, yeah, not a lot to say aside from that. This guy, Wu Jing, he's clearly very talented, and I'm sure he's going to make lots more action movies in the future. If this movie is as successful as I've read, then yeah, he'll probably end up being a big star, and maybe even come over here to the States to make a few movies. We'll see. So, as usual, I'm going to take the last 10 movies and kind of go do a little summary on them, summary video, and I'm also going to provide some interesting statistical information. At least I find it statistically interesting regarding just how many movies I saw before versus how many I hadn't, and things like that, in a little summary video, which I'll post next week. And after that, I will do a video on The Last Jedi, which I saw almost a week ago, but haven't made a video on yet. I will be doing that. I've really been interested in reading a lot more about the film and seeing other people's evaluations, and I probably want to see it a second time before making a video on it. I know most of the people I talk to, they've already seen it 3 times. It's only been on a week. They've already seen it 3 times, and some people even saw it like twice in one day. Anyway, that's a little off topic. Anyway, like I said, this is the last one. This is the last video in my series, the last review, anyway, on a particular movie, and it's been quite something. The year just kind of flew by for me you know, as I sort of spend my way through this. It would have gone, of course, a lot quicker if I'd done one per day, but that would have been a little difficult to manage. So 1 per week I thought worked out very, very nicely. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that some of these movies, if you haven't seen them, you take a look at if they interest you. Like I said, I'll be back for one more summary video, but this is kind of the end. Thank you for watching. Thank you if you've been keeping up with this series. Once Breihan posts this article on Wolf Warrior 2, I will include it in the link below. The link in the description below, as well as the, as usual, the link to the playlist where all these videos are, and my Facebook page if you want to check that out too. Thanks again very, very much. Appreciate it. And I will see you very soon. Later.